Welcome back to the podcast, New Birth Fitness Family. Today we want to talk about the lessons in failure. How so many people live a life of regret because of focusing on failure. What's the time you can think of as a mom where maybe you were so focused on what happened without really gaining the lesson from it?
What I would consider, or what I considered failures in my life, was my divorce
Mm.
from my previous husband. Because part of the reason why I had stayed in that relationship was because of my kids. So I felt like not only did I fail in marriage, but I was also failing my kids when it came to keeping our family together. So I feel like that has been one of the biggest times where I felt like I was not only failing myself and failing at a task in general, but I was failing my kids like big time. And that's what kept me from doing it for a very long time. And it wasn't until I switched my mindset on I might actually be failing them more by staying in the relationship than what I would be failing if I just did what I was supposed
Because there's no way they're going to get the
to.
best version of you
Yes.
while you're living in that state.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
So for me, I would say, I'm sticking around, for my kids. I always said to myself, one of my biggest goals in life was like I said this when I was younger, and that's why your words are so powerful because I said, in the past that I only wanted my kids to have one dad.
Wow.
I wanted my family to consist of one mom and one dad, nobody extra. And it's crazy how life humbles you to the point of you think that you have control over certain things and that things are going to go the way you plan them to be. And it was hard for me to get away from a reality that I had spoke or that I thought was going to be the reality of my life. And that was the hardest thing when it came to accepting that I wouldn't be able to fulfill that. And because I was so hard in the pain about it, then I felt like I failed in everything, like in every area.
Yeah.
So now what I can say is, and what this topic is about is like the lesson in the failure. Because you haven't failed if you're still here. If you have another chance to really make right what you thought was wrong.
Because the story is incomplete.
The
It's still
story is
going.
not
It's still
complete,
being wrote.
right?
Yeah.
So even if you think you have failed, if you're still here, you haven't failed because you still have an opportunity. And then sometimes we don't see the lesson in the failure because we're so worried about the fact that for us in our eyes, it's a failure and we don't know what's on the other side.
Sometimes we're so close to the problem at hand that we can't really see the bigger picture. Like, if you were way, way high in the sky, you were looking down at the ground, you get to see the trees, the houses, and so many things all around.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get very, very close to the ground, all you see is just the grass and things of that nature. So sometimes I think when the time goes by, you get a chance to reflect back and see it from a distance. Versus when you're in the moment, you're only focused on how big the problem is. But I think
Yeah.
it looks smaller as time goes by.
And I think that
Hmm.
one thing that's really helped me, maybe not in the moment because I didn't have a lot of women that I surrounded myself with. So I didn't have a lot of people to talk to and say, this is not a failure. This is part of the process. This is part of your journey. It wasn't really until you introduced me to your mom and she spoke to me about her particular situation and how in certain ways it was similar to mine. And I was like, wow, like I'm not the only one that has gone through this. I don't need to carry this burden like I'm the only person that has ever dealt with this because that's not true. And a lot of women, especially mothers, feel like whatever the thing that they're going through, whether it's in motherhood, in their marriage, personally, are failures that only they have experienced.
Yeah.
And that is not true.
So keeps you stuck for longer, it's thinking that.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
keeps you looping that in your head like, how could this happen to me? How could I have allowed this to happen to me? How did I get myself in this situation? Like, I feel like the worst person in the world for whatever that failure was. And then you keep looping it to the point where it keeps you from looking at the positive side of things, or even saying, this is just a moment where I feel like a failure. But I am not a failure. I feel like
Yeah.
one, but I'm not one.
And isn't it crazy how the lessons you learn can actually fast track somebody else's, journey later on? Like you get to help them fast track how long it took you to get out of it, maybe. You can shorten the time it takes them to get out of it
Yeah.
based on
I
your
don't know
experience.
how many women have come to me at this point now
Yeah.
and shared their story about whatever it is that they feel like they have failed at. In motherhood, it may be something to do with your kids.
Hmm.
They're getting bad grades in school. They've gotten around the wrong crowd. They're, older in age and now they're rebellious. So now you're looking at yourself and saying, what did I do? How did I fail? Or I've failed as a mother. But you don't sit there and look at all the times that you were an amazing mother. You haven't failed as a mother. There's situations that have made certain things come about. And I've had a lot of different cases like that where, the mom guilt is huge.
You're so more, you're armed to actually help people through that situation
Mm-hmm.
because of your experiences. Like if you didn't have those experiences, you wouldn't even know what to say to them, how to identify with them, what things will actually stick to help them get out of that situation.
Yeah, and then I feel like as moms, we have this superpower that most of the time our kids look at us, even though we may not be the perfect mom, the perfect woman, the perfect anything, they still look at us as Superman,
Hmm.
even though we believe that they think we're the worst person in the world. Because sometimes we may need to discipline. Sometimes we may not be there as much as we want to be there. Sometimes we may be in a place where in ourselves we're not in the best place to give it our best shot. And I feel like that's the place where I was in. So when you work on getting yourself to a better place, automatically the people around you are going to get a better version of you. So it's not about just beating yourself up all the time about I failed as mom, I failed at this, I failed at that, I failed at this business, I failed at all these things, I failed in marriage, because it has taught you something along the way to where when the opportunity comes up and you can show the world, I've learned from this, then you're going to reap everything that you have sowed in the past.
And you keep living life that way, it just creates so much stress,
Mm-hmm.
anxiety. It leaks into all other areas of your life. It's like, I failed at this, I failed at this. It almost makes you fail at other things
Mm-hmm.
just and keep changing situations because of focusing on the failure.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so I've seen recently, a lot of moms, because we talk to moms in all walks of, their life. Some have newborn babies. Some have kids that are, in high school or graduating, or gone off to the
Some have
military.
grandkids. Yeah.
Some have grandkids.
Yeah.
So I've seen how it it comes in stages
Mm.
where you start feeling like this mom guilt. But I've seen how also when your kids get older, you're reaping some of these, seeds that you have sown, and like the harvest that you have, just planted through the years. You're not going to see the full fulfillment of what you've done with your kids right in the moment.
I love being able to see that crack like in the armor where somebody's been living in what they think is the truth for a long time. And then they have somebody like you come along or somebody like me come along where it's like, look at this a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the light bulb go off in the head like, I never looked at it that way before. And that little crack is just enough for more information to start seeping in. If you dive into it, you're like, wow, there's a whole nother world out there that
Yeah.
I didn't even
And
think of.
maybe I've just been looking at things,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all about perspective.
Everything.
The
Yeah.
perspective the lens that you use to see things through makes the biggest difference. And a lot of people, what they don't understand is the more positive you can be and the more positive about yourself you can be, the more you will attract positivity into your
Mm-hmm.
life. Whether you feel the worst today, if you make it a goal to be positive, something positive is going to happen. But if you're always, Debbie Downer, I've done this wrong, I'm basically the lowest vibration of all
That's
is
what you
guilt.
pull in. Yep.
Guilt. If you're always in the victim and guilt frame of things, you can't attract anything positive. So that's where we have to switch it and say, I don't feel like being positive today. There's nothing that makes me feel positive about myself right now, but making it a conscious decision to be more positive.
And even when something positive comes to you, you don't even realize that it's positive.
Mm-hmm.
You view it as negative, so then you push it away when that could have been the thing that actually changed a person's life. They
Yep.
push it away because they don't even see it.
Yep.
They don't even realize this is my blessing in disguise, but it just goes in one ear, out the other.
Yeah. So we have to be more intentional about, how we use our words, how we're thinking about ourselves. When we look in the mirror, what do you see? How are you treating that person? And not looking at yourself as a failure. Because if you're still here, you have an opportunity to be as successful in anything that you set your mind to. You just have to keep, you have to be persistent. You have to be consistent. And I feel like a big part of gaining confidence in yourself as a person is to go through those things, but to get to the other side. And the more you get to the other side and you see that it wasn't just a failure, it just showed you or it helped you get to the next place even quicker, the more confident you are that you're going to be able to continue to do this in anything that comes up. It doesn't matter how hard, it doesn't matter how painful, it doesn't matter how tragic you think a situation that you're going through is. You're going to be able to get through it. And I feel like that's where personally people can lean into a lot of different things that can help them with that. Whether that's their support system, whether that's God, whether that is, personal development, whether that's even mindset videos like this. You are helping yourself to start thinking in a positive way,
Yeah, you have
or
to
thinking
focus.
in a different way.
You have to focus on what was I supposed to learn from that situation.
Mm-hmm.
What am I supposed to learn from the situation I'm currently in right now? Don't focus on just the bad. What am I supposed to learn so you can use that and apply it to where you go next? Like right now in your journey, the things you're looking at as this is a curse to me. Why is this happening to me? Why is it only happening to me? Can be your biggest blessing if you flip it around and look at it from a different lens.
Yep.
And a lot of times to look at something from a different lens, you have to put new information in. You got to get around new people so that they can show you a new lens so you can now look at it from that perspective versus the one you've been living in that isn't really working right now.
Yeah. And I think a big thing for people and mothers, especially because we're around our kids all the time, is paying attention to how they conquer challenges. Like if we became more like kids, if you think about it, most kids are going to school every day and they're learning things that they never knew about. And yes, they're going to get an answer wrong. Yes, they're not going to have the right answer to everything. There's a lot of new experiences that they have to go through. But not because of that are they going to stop growing and learning. So if we become more like kids and we absorb information and we're like, oh, well, we're going to continue. This may have been a little difficult, or I didn't understand this, or, I have never seen this in my life, but I'm not going to let it conquer me. I'm just going to learn it and I'm going to move forward. Then what can that really do for us?
And they grow so fast because they are not afraid to ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
They will ask you 1,000 questions in a row until they get to where they feel like they understand it.
Yes.
If they do not understand, they're going to ask you another one.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, as adults, we're so scared to ask a question. What if they say no?
Mm-hmm.
Or what if they judge me based on what I just asked? So now you keep quiet. But what happens is by keeping quiet, you don't get to the better side of life because there's no way you have all the answers already here. You got to find people to ask questions to
That's an
so you can level up.
amazing way to look at it,
Mm-hmm.
because I remember, in the past as an adult, I would be so scared to speak up. Like even if I was, in college or in a class and I really didn't understand something, I would just stay quiet. And I realized that that was really hurting me because I didn't have an opportunity to say, I don't understand this. Like I need more help. So once I got into the mindset of I don't have everything figured out, maybe I can lean into other people that have more information than me, then I started realizing, wow, this world can really open up because I'm not just in my head.
Yeah.
I'm not looping in my head. I'm allowing outside information. And that's where you have to use your discernment and say, is this information really helpful to my life? Or is this something that could cause more harm?
Even if it's something that triggers you, when you get the answer, if it triggers you, don't just immediately reject it. Like, sit back and think about it even after the conversation. Why is it triggering me?
Mm-hmm.
Is it because it was good information, but I'm not doing it right now? So now I feel judged. Now I feel hurt because I'm not doing it right now. Well, if that's the case and you feel like it's good information, then apply it now.
And that's more than likely going
Mm-hmm.
to happen a lot when
Mm-hmm.
you first start allowing outside
Yep.
information to come in. And I can say that from personal
Yep.
experience because it is very
Yep.
triggering to realize that maybe you've only been seeing things from your perspective and that it hasn't worked out the way that you thought it was going to work out. So that's
It's a
all point.
hard, yeah, it's a hard truth, but it helps you get to the next level. I always say the worst thing somebody can say if you ask a question is no. Okay, if they say no, you're still at the same spot anyway. There was no loss. But what if they say yes? That one yes and answering the question that you had been holding on to for a long time could change your life forever. Because now you get to build on top of that question, build on top of the next question, build on top of the next question, and then you get to go give that back to somebody else too later. So on that note, that's the end of the video, New Birth Fitness family. Be back at the game before you know it. We out. See you.